see if my stuff is working. Maybe not. Okay. Wait, did I update my stream info? I don't know if I did. Oops. Hold on. Stream information. Part. There we go. Whoa, the gold live went and worked. Yippee! Okay, so let's link this. Just a little bit of setup today. Real quick. Copy paste this. Hi there. Perfect. Okay. Let me know if I'm too loud / too quiet. I messed around with my audio some more, so things should be a little bit more balanced than yesterday, and I should be a little bit more audible. Whoop. Oh my god, Bobbert! Hi! Rare Bobbert W actually made it to the stream. Okay, so what was I doing? I was trying to figure out the meaning of these words, which I think this one's gonna all be like verbs, but we have most of our verbs. But I cannot figure out which one this page was. Rare, yeah. You know what, let me go talk to Pot Guy, see if there's a word he says that I don't know. Oh wait, it's this way. Pot man, what is the word you say that I don't know? Maybe it's like that one and it's make. Maybe it's not sell, it's make, but then... Oh, okay. So, music instrument. That's is make, okay. And let's create. Okay, and then that's... So that means up. It doesn't mean anything about tower or building. It means up. Okay. Dude, I'm filled with words. Okay. I understand. Alright, now we're going to head back to the graveyard to finish up what we left off on yesterday, which was figuring out what this passage that we opened was. The church will help you. Okay. Okay. What? Alright. Has a broken pipe, so the water can't be turned off there unless we go turn off something. Water comes through here, through here. Here. Water still dripping? No. But see, now I kind of want to see what's in these other areas. If there's anything. Oh, there's some. Oh, a corpse. That must be the priest. He came in here and died, I guess. Okay, and this put us on the other side of those guys. Okay. It's so ominous and quiet in here. Oh, it's very blue. Oh shit, they saw me. Oh no! They're so fast. Oh, they got me. Yeah, the enemies do speak another language. We've got our own dictionary for them that I haven't begun to decipher yet. This one could be soldier. The language is a lot sharper too. This symbol and this symbol are kind of similar. So I wonder if there's any connection between them. Oh, is this a place I can go to? It is. Okay, okay. Oh, gecko. This has a lot of writing on it. Hello. Is this the fucking Rosetta Stone? So then let's assume this is warrior. This could be death, right? Let's see. Then this could be no. Wait. No. No, this one might be death. This one. Okay. Then this would be like. No, I messed this up. One of those is wrong and one of them is right. But this one is probably no. Oh god. Oh, okay. It is the Rosetta Stone. So if I think this one's death for reals. This one is like. This one is no, and this one is warrior. No. Okay, what was the other one I thought might be death? No. Fuck. Is it this? And then this is? No. Hold up. Let me look at this again some more. We know the one that's not in there is warriors don't like death. Maybe it's people. But see... Maybe that one's soldier and that one's people. Okay. This one might be people. This is the no. There. Okay, okay, we got it, we got it. So it was soldier people. Basically. So this is just person. Okay. Okay, and then let's activate this so we can warp. You have to translate it. Okay, 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 okay. Okay, so this is a translation minigame. So it's gonna be like devotee. Not something. Person, not something. But we actually don't know those words yet. I'm gonna go back here. Because I think there was a translation one on this one too. I'm gonna see if I understand. Oh, but I don't know this guy's language. There's a third language? Ah, shit. Okay, I'm... Wait. I've only gone through 3 warp places. I was thinking this was going to be a kind of a short game, but I think this is going to be like another minimum 2 sessions after today. Kind of game. Oh, that's exciting though. That's so much. Hmm? Hmm? Buddy, I think you gotta knock this over. But our buddy might be not smart. Wait, there's something... Oh, this sphere. Ah, drink time? Okay. Okay, my lord, I obey. Thank you. Okay, maybe I use this spear to knock this pillar over now. Okay. We'll just wedge it in there and use it as a lever. Yep. Sick. They do me marching. Okay. So that's go and stop, I believe. And then, people. Yeah. Plural? Okay. So they've got a unique word for just pluralizing. Interesting. Gecko. I'm a big fan of the little animals that appear. It's really convenient that they all left this room. Where am I? He'll never suspect a thing. Oh. Okay. Wait until these guys are distracting them. Okay. Why did I do that? Why did I do that? What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing, actually. So I wait for these guys to get by, maybe? I do this. Okay, and then I do this. And skedaddle. These guys eventually move on from up here. No, you didn't see me. Fuck! No, let me through! Let me through! They did not see me. It's really funny because if I get caught, these guys just like spawn there, but if I don't get caught, God, there's a lot of them in this room. I love elevators. Okay. Water. Just in quite a few other words. Okay, so I have to push that up to use it as cover. Is this guy gonna find it suspicious? He does not care. So once his back is turned and he's going to be walking towards the stairs, and I go over there. And then once he turns back to go to this position, I'll go back and actually go up the stairs. Okay. Perfect. God damn. I don't know if this is right. Looks like we just kind of go. No fucking way you saw me from that far. God damn it! This place is humongous. Oh, okay, okay. I've got to wait until this cart's going to be blocking this guy's view. It's like now. God, that's so far to go. And this guy's going to see me if I... Wait, what's this? Pocket sand? How would I send it, like, now? So this guy starts walking over, and then... What? Dude, my character just ran out there for no reason. Oh, I went too late because I was distracted thinking about that. Oh, no, I'm good. Okay, but I mistimed this because this guy's gonna see me for sure. Okay. I do have to wait for the second cart. Okay. Okay. We do like a little bit of puzzles. It's like now. Okay. We did it! We solved the crossing the room puzzle. Alright, anything I can learn in here? Oh, no way. We're getting fitted up. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Which one am I? I want to be one of, like, the commanding officers. So I want to have the dots, and I want to have a sword, looks like. Maybe? Do they carry a sword? A shield? Maybe, maybe not. No, maybe we should be good. That was the you solved a puzzle sound, so. See, I'm gonna assume this means equipment. It's so jagged. Oh, if I get really close to them, they get suspicious. That's fair and it makes sense. But I can look around a little more freely at stuff. Okay. So getting told to pick up this stuff, I don't know which one it could be. That's probably the cart. So if we assume it means load cart, doesn't make sense. Oop. Many items. Let's just say boxes. Oh, hey. Does this mean push then? Maybe this means setting down boxes. This means pick up? No. Is it this one? No. Let's watch what they say again. Just know the things we need to pick up on are carry, put down, and push. Warrior weight. It's like, what if we assume this word means servant? And this one means carry. Does that make sense going forward? And if I say this is drop, no, it would not. This would have to be this. Which means, like, theoretically, this could be carry. This would be possibly box, right? Servant, box, carry is what we're assuming right now. This is going to be telling us a lot of our order that words go in. Wait, no, maybe these are the opposing ones. Hold on. Then unless it's the other way around. Shit. Fuck. Okay, I'm gonna assume these two have to be one or the other. They're saying this, so let's assume this is carry then. Let's assume this is drop. I'm still gonna assume this is cart, but that can't be. It's not correct. It could be cart, but it's not, maybe it's not forward. Unless these two are carry and drop. Here, let's assume all of these are carry for the moment. We'll say all of these are carry so we can just differentiate when he says something else. Well, he says drop in that one. Maybe this means small. Maybe this is small and large. No, because he said... Because that third guy has a large package. Which would make this one large. Sorry for talking about small packages, guys. Wait, maybe this means drop. In which case, one of these is carry. understand. Maybe it's just... No, maybe it is cart. Maybe it's go to cart. Okay, I think this is drop then. I think that's drop for real. Because it's all drop. This is drop boxes. Kind of. It might be in this language, but in this it was not. It was like different words could be some things, but it was like concept-wise it was the same. See, but we already know this middle world is a plural. So something in here needs to be pluralized. Like, that's a hard confirmed word right there in the middle is plural. So one of these is drop. So this might be carry. That's push. That might be my problem. Fuck! Big fan of push. Okay, so that was cart. We know this isn't drop. This is probably just box. This might be small and large. We'll just leave it small and large there. Yeah, let's go. Okay, so yeah, we can confirm large. We can confirm small. We can confirm box. What? When did we learn the word for bottle? When did we learn the word for bottle? Is it equipment? Huh? Huh? Does it mean container? Unless I did mess up large and small. Oh well. We'll figure that out. We know we've got the word for bottle in there somewhere. We just have to find a bottle to confirm. Possibly. Oh wait, that's the word for bottle right there. We did not have that shit. I'm gonna put the word small and large how I thought it were. They gave me a dictionary page before I had the word. That was their issue. It was actually quite rude of them to do. Oh, I can go over here. Warrior. And then the word I don't know. Carry equipment. Oh, maybe it means like battalion or something. Cart. And sword. Duty. Warrior's duty. Push plural. Something. Two new words. But it's definitely, it's one of their core tenets, so it's important to them. Okay. We're gonna learn whatever that is. Music comes back. It's like a arena. But is that the what they want us to call it? Do not know anything about those yet. Alcoholics. There's a person in here. And they've got a symbol of the bells. So I should go get him 2 bottles of wine, perhaps? No. I think they're saying that the guy in there loves bottles of alcohol. Okay, this is a good learning room. We learn words. The warrior carries a weapon. Warrior does not fear death, I'm gonna assume. It says fear. Warrior plays a guitar. Maybe this is their word for priest. We know the thing that we learned in the cemetery is that God loves music or something. Cannot get past those guys. Lizard. So maybe it doesn't mean priest. What does it mean then? There's writing on this sword I didn't notice. I don't understand. This goes to bottles. Okay, yeah, it does. It does go to bottles. Gecko. Don't mind me, guys, just grabbing the bottles. Very important warrior business. What does this sign say here? I don't know. I have no idea what that says. Jail. No. I should go to the bell place first. Hold on. Before I start on other things, I should go get that. Not this way, I've got to go that way. Goes to the statues. Maybe I have to go get another bottle. Maybe I can only carry one bottle at a time when I need to. That's actually really funny. Oh, water time. Thank you. I will be hydrated now. Before I go get that, I want to check it out over here. Oh, I'm not allowed to go through there. Okay. Yeah, one of the guys. I'd like to march, sir. Oh, wait. Thanks, guys. Okay, okay. So if you didn't know the words, you get fucked here. Can you give me a little crate? Thank you. Like I didn't fall in line immediately, so everyone was like instantly alert for a moment. Oh yeah! I push the trolley, fuck yeah! I'm free! I'm waiting for my chance. I want to go to that door up there, obviously. But I think if I go now, it'll alert everyone. I think this other guy's going to take the cart and expect me to turn around and go back out there to those guys. I don't know, are we just chilling? We're chill? Okay, bye. So they also saw the tower. Maybe it means... It doesn't mean priests. Maybe it's like musicians. So I wonder if it's how this tower is working is each group came here after the group before them and is building like their own outside civilization, because we can see the tower already existed when these guys came, but it's different from when we saw it in the mural that was made by the priests outside. In that one, the tower had a huge outer lower city around it, which it doesn't have in this. It doesn't look like. Oh, I'm stupid. I'm stupid. If you go look a little ahead. We look a little ahead, we see. Yeah, they did build this city. So I wonder if this one, this means like arrival. Perhaps. I can't remember what other context we've seen the word in. Warrior. And their duty is to fight off monsters and protect the city. So this means, maybe this means enemies. Oops, enemies. Not monsters. This is just how they see everybody else. City. This one could mean build, or it could mean the other way. Maybe. We put a little bit more of the puzzle together with every word we find. Oh, this is going to be the one that tells me which ones we do, isn't it? No? Yeah, the scales, the boat, and that. I think I need to get a light of some kind. I refuse. Because it looks like there's something on this, and this might be glass panels. Oh wait, can I just pick up that light source over here? Hold on. Excellent. Okay. Because if I stand in this, I think it's going to cast shadows. Yeah, there's holes in here, but I don't know what it means. Maybe I have to come and observe it now? I don't know. Maybe I just have to use this torch to go through the labyrinth underneath. Like, obviously, yeah, there's holes in this, which you can see. But it doesn't seem to do anything as is. Gecko. Hold on. That's moving the thing upstairs. So now it's turned around and each one is properly facing. And I can see that there's a hole. Yeah, we cooked. Wait, hold on. I didn't finish exploring downstairs because I thought that was going to just give me a hint to something else. I didn't expect that was just going to be the answer to the puzzle. Oh, okay, this is just a save room. Well, not really a save room, but, you know, a teleport room. Did that add that shit to our dictionary? That would be cool. No, it did not. Please, add the words to the dictionary. I beg of you. What? So this is treasure, probably. Because that's the word that's on here. This is the one. It's either this or it's this. And the one that I think is a rival could be talk. Oh yeah, we cooked! Yeah! I'm at it. I'm on it. Okay. Call. So they heard the call. They call this the fortress. So they built a fortress. So that is built, probably. And this is treasure. Okay. That's crazy. Dude, a hamster wheel. Wait, actually. Does this just put me up a certain level on this? I think. I don't actually know what I need from this room, do I? No. I don't know. Maybe this will tell me. Oh, hey. These are the guys with the next language. So this is a Rosetta Stone. So one of those two is a search. I don't know why I keep like tabbing out when I can see the words up here. So search. I'll type that as just search 1. And I'll type this as search 2. Because I know one of those is search. And I'd like to think this is help, then. Oh, it's gonna just... sus guy. So this is help, possibly. Either this is search or this is search. Okay, and then that, yeah. Okay. You haven't missed much. I've mostly just gone through the fortress. I think I'm approaching the end of the fortress segment. Scientist. Okay. There's a boat here. I don't know. I feel like there's something in here that would be good to grab, but I don't know what it would in particular be. I'm wondering if it's maybe... this me... Oh, no, sorry. Ah, no. I didn't mean to press the lever. I'm wondering if it's that mirror there. I'll get up here. I swear. I swear. I'm gonna check out this mirror. No! I thought he was gonna grab it again. Okay. So it's not that then. What the hell do they want me to grab from this, if anything? Or am I just... is it just kind of like an optional thing? And maybe it has to do with the items that are on the displays. Does it? We have no need for treasure. Surely. Where does this go? Where does this elevator go that comes from this very cool and secret vault? Surely it doesn't go just to a main accessible room. And yet it does. Incredible. Anyway, what up, guys? That does remind me, I need to get that second bottle for that guy. I think he needs 2 bottles, is what I was understanding. No, this is not the right way. Gotta get Mr. Alcoholic his drinkies. Yeah, here's where we go to get the bottle. I know, he wants 2 bottles. Unless he wants us to get drunk with him. No, he doesn't want a second bottle, so what does he want? Oops, sorry. I like to get a little sus if I bump into them, but not enough to, like, start immediately chasing me. So I wonder what I'm missing. I want to assume it won't let me pick up a second bottle, so I've got to assume that's not what he wants, but I can't imagine what he does. No, this is the way. Oh, the door's just open now. What the hell? The fucking... Call of Duty. Call of Duty. Dude. COD? God, that's a lot of words. Instruments. Oh, and this gave me more words for... Not for them. I assured you maybe know the word instrument. 1 second. This is the one I was gonna assume was like bell ringer or something. I think I've got to go into that last area with the dudes. I'm glad that guy's having a good chill time up there though. Yeah, I think if I go into the area I'm assuming is a prison, it'll give me the last few words I need to figure out that puzzle. Oh yeah, there were the words on the sword that I didn't fully understand. So the warriors wait for the calls of the musicians. Enemies wait for death. That does make sense. That does sound about right. What up, guys? Do I understand you a little better? Yeah. The greatest joke on earth. Oh, it's a telescope. We learned some big words today, aren't we? Treasure. Okay. Fuck. Okay, that's what I need from the treasure vault then, is the square mirror. No way. Oh, that's the lens for this then. So that might mean telescope. This might mean sun. Okay. No, it means moon. So it's an eclipse. Anyway, I was right about that being bell ringer. Like, dead on, it looks like. Ooh. So that must be moon and this is sun. Okay. I'm so smart. Bellman. It was pretty much bell ringer. Alright, let's go get that lens. It's like square, or do I have to look at this to see the shape? No, it is that shape. Okay. So back to the treasure vault. Through 1 million stairs. So I was right that I needed to get something from that shelf. I just didn't understand what it was I needed. And I guess that explains why there's the shortcut here. So we don't have to go and do that whole walking around that room and picking up boxes puzzle again. Isn't that literally the mirror that I checked out? I think that was literally the mirror I looked at. Is the item I need. I suppose it wasn't the most eye-catching. Man. My dude should have just picked it up the first time. He should have just been willing to steal the thing that I wanted. I can't stop yawning. It's making my eyes water. Alright, well, to figure out this telescope, it'll hopefully tell us some things. Maybe we'll see God, or what the priests outside interpret as such. Hopefully we won't stare directly into the sun with it. Yeah, I heard the snow's been pretty bad, pretty much everywhere. We're actually unseasonably warm where I'm at, so like, if I look out my window, there is literally no snow. It's crazy. And then it might rain tomorrow. Okay, so these are constellations. And that's the one that I interpreted as being an instrument. What does... Okay. What? Well, we wrote it down, so it should be good. So now I think we'll go take a look at the bell ringer's book again. And the bell ringer's looking up at the sky while he drinks, and he's got a book that mentions constellations. I have to array the bells in some kind of order. No, I do not. But is that Call of the Musicians, Call of the Moon? Are the instrument names... So I said instrument, but... Okay, yeah, one of these is instrument. So each of these constellations should correspond to one of these. I'm a Libra. This bottom right one kind of looks like Cassiopeia. That doesn't probably have anything to do with that. So if that's instrument... One of these is a key, one of these is a boat. Cancer. So instrument. I wonder if that middle one's key. There was a boat down in the treasure vault. I wonder if there was something there that could have told me one of these other words. A room full of cancer. So real and true. I wonder with my updated learning if the statues over here, because I know there were some words I didn't know on them. Pretty sure. So let's just take one quick more look at them. Warrior carries a weapon. Warrior does not fear death. And this one was just instrument. Musicians possess an instrument. I'm pretty sure the red dudes at the end of this hall will beat the shit out of me if I walk up to them. Fair certain. Maybe one of the rooms earlier in the fortress I maybe overlooked. You know, I was assuming that's an arena, but maybe it's more akin to a concert hall. Like, is there not a room on this side? Doesn't seem like it. Yeah, I should go up through the upper door here. Actually... Oh, maybe I can understand this full set of duties now that I know more words. Push out the enemies. I wonder if this is protect. Oops, if I can spell. Protect. Yo, my local brother in Christ, what do we call that thing floating in the water? Please. Wait, that's the treasure room up there with the hamster wheel. What is my cat doing? Wait, no, this is a different hamster wheel room. I've not been in here. What? I never came up in here. You can't go any further. What did that do? What? What did that do? I'm assuming this is just resets it. What? Okay. Yeah, I did not master the hamster tech. Dude, imagine being the guy that gets sent to hamster wheel duty. to rotate the statue. Torna, what are you doing? Warrior carries the duty. Oh, okay. So, enemies. Enemies. Musicians. And protect. That one we got. The Chosen, they call them. Okay. Interesting. That is protect. The impure. It's a very harsh word to use. Interesting. I see. These guys are just severely racist. Wait, no, I took off my clothes. Please put them back on. Thank goodness. Okay, so I'm assuming that is not the way we gotta go. Where else have I not gone? Did I go over here? What's this room? These guys are not up for a friendly chat. This just goes down to where like the bottles are kept. Or, well, is this room, but it might as well be where the bottles are kept. Guys. What is this called? This thing back here. Give me the process of elimination. If I only had to guess between two things, I could probably figure it out pretty quick. Oh, I'm sorry. That was rude of me to assume I could go back there. So nice of them to just knock me out and drag me to the top of the stairs. But this is the room with the chest. And the bottles. There's the elevator, which takes us up to the main room. Maybe there's another room I can access from in here that I just haven't. So I went there, I went to the equipment room. This just goes up to here. And hiccup. Anyone a big fan of boats? Want to tell me the word for a boat? Seafaring vessel. Big fan of boats. Maybe I have to, give this a try before I do anything else. Hold on. Is there anything else in here I could interact with? This guy seems to like the stars. No. Boat, instrument, and key. The only place that we saw these symbols before was the treasure vault. Well, like the entrance to the treasure vault. I'm gonna take one more look down there, just to see if there's anything I might be missing. Because I know we could put the torch in there. Maybe I'm just stupid and I forgot to do something while the torch was in. Yeah, we put the bottle on the bench, and that lured him out. Wait, was this the right? No, this is the bottle elevator. This is not the right elevator. Whoops. I'm lost. How do I get back to the... Okay, it's here. Never mind. Don't worry, Bobbert. You're literally watching someone with worse memory than a goldfish. Damn, call me a bird brain, bruh. It'd be really funny if, like, there was a way to unfurl the sails and it just, like, said the word for boat on it. Like, straight up. Bird brain. It shows the constellations overlaid. It shows the constellations overlaid over them. I'm so stupid. So yeah, the Cassiopeia looking one is Libra. Fuck. This one is in fact the key. This one is in fact the instrument. And that means this one's the boat. It might be stupid. We gotta figure it out. Balance, key, instrument, vessel. Okay, we got it figured out though. Heartbreaking. Your streamer turns a 10-minute segment into a 30-minute segment. But, at the very least, what if I ever forgot to cut the stream? You just, like, hear me leave and then hear my cat ambiently tearing up the room every once in a while. Cat's being a good girl right now, though. She's just laying on the bed. I'm going the wrong way. So maybe I can write this down now that I'm, like, actually understanding. Right? Surely my guy would write it down. Surely my guy would write this puzzle down and not make me have to remember this. Well, I probably just need to do this one, right? I'm gonna bet. So, balance, instrument, key, vessel, key. And then we ring the bell. And the bell ringer looks over at me like, what? He straight up left. He's like, I know my ass getting fired. I just trolled them. Yeah, I'm sorry, Bellringer. He's getting fired AF. So this is build. And this is fear. I never found this word. Whoops, I never found the word for playing an instrument. Oh wait, never mind. We found the word for playing an instrument. Holy shit. So that means there was words I forgot for the other one, wasn't there? Or did I actually finish that one? Because I don't think they ever told me that for this. Maybe I did. Maybe I did finish it. Anyway, I'm out of here. I'm off to the next floor to see the scientists, as they are called by these guys. I took off my clothes while I was at it, apparently. I'm really just digging the robe look. The homeless robe guy look. Okay, let's get our first look at this language. Chosen ones pass, warriors don't pass. And this one looks very Arabic. Arabic. It looks very Arabic. So this is probably the word for pass, if I'm gonna guess. See, this is in here twice. This one, this could be the one for people. Person. And then we've got perhaps warrior person and chosen person. Chosen person would be possibly this one. And this would be warrior if that... yeah, I can't type. Warrior person. And possibly to say that this is like no. So warriors don't pass. This could be just put no. Oh, I got a page scribble already? Okay. So not... No, let's see if we're correct. Go pass. Pass. Plural. Maybe that's a plural then. We do have warrior. Okay, that's a plural. It's not person, it's plural. But I was pretty correct about all that other stuff, which means, yeah, that one's probably chosen. Or whatever it means to these people. It might not mean chosen to them. Dude, we did get to go on a boat. The P floor. Is everything full of pee on this floor? It's so nice. I'm sure these people are really peaceful compared to the last ones. These guys are probably just gonna be like, yo, what's up? How'd you get here? I'm gonna assume this is reading. Got the dots on both sides. And then we've got whatever she's saying. Not a warrior. I'm probably saying something about how warriors don't look like me or something. Oops. I didn't get on the bridge. Here we go. I'm learning so many words. I've got no idea what this guy's saying. Oh, thank you. Can you say that again? I'm gonna assume the middle one might be this. One could be referring, one of these words probably refers to me. One might refer to the self. But it could be this one. No? Or it could be this one. No, I don't understand enough yet. Unless he's saying he loves the mirror and he loves himself. I don't know. No, we'll figure it out. Let's get some more context clues. This guy doesn't want to talk to me. You. Talk to me. No. They don't seem to have a lot of written language yet that I've seen. They got piss fountains. An artiste. She possibly said greetings. So maybe this one is like person. So chosen person. Maybe this is this. He assumes that's like referring to oneself. No, it's the plural. Okay, bye, Bobbert. I know it's probably getting pretty late for you. Okay, so this is mirror. Or more appropriately, it's probably reflection. This is probably like... Sorry, what's it look like? Is this shit live, laugh, love? No, music. These are like their virtues. Oh, sorry, virtues I type in. That's not right. I want to type in music. They are the virtues. I have a banana. Or... I have a well-shaped fruit. I have a very well-shaped fruit. Incredible. Do I understand you a little bit? No. Set a reflection. So perhaps it's a self-portrait she's doing. I mean, it could be that. It could be that. Let's try going this way now. There's like music. Okay. Okay. What about this? Does it say the same things pretty much? No, it does not. I have no idea what that middle one says. Give me... Warrior with a sword. Person with a hammer. So maybe that last symbol is person. Maybe this is person. Right? I don't know. Wait, can I take... Warrior sword. Person with a tool, possibly. And then... So chosen people have an instrument. Still. Shit, there's another one here. So a person who's not something. A chosen person, something. I wanted to steal back the banana. I'm cruel like that. Oh shit, there's another banana. Maybe it's like beauty. The only common word is person. So I want to say maybe that's like, if this is not, maybe this is. Maybe this is yes. No? Okay. So it's like greeting. Maybe it's a question. And musician. Yeah, okay. Okay, we're getting it. Bard. Bard is what they've got. Okay. Maybe asking what kind of person I am. There's a piss grate. Okay. Maybe I understand this person a little more too. See, this one that I think is person. This one that I'm not sure what it is. They seem... Maybe it's yes and no. Let's talk to these people again that we first spoke to. Go back to Monkey Land. Maybe it's bad and good. Wait, there was a banana. Banana. God, what a shapely thing. What? Okay, okay. So maybe this is this. Maybe this is weapon. Let me type these as I go. Jester, perhaps. It could indicate like a role. But to carry. Seems like a really nice floor to live on. Okay. So maybe like tool craftsman person. There it is. Tool. Maybe this is the word for instrument. Maybe it's just simple as hold what thing they're holding, roll, item, something. Maybe this means bad. Maybe this means they suck at it. Like a warrior who sucks at being a warrior might drop their sword. Or a bard who sucks at being a bard might get distracted. I don't know. Well, that would make sense. Now, hold on. Maybe it's not person. Maybe this is love. Not this one, not this one. This one. Yeah, maybe it's love is the common denominator word here. Maybe this is love. In which case, what is person? Is this actually person? Man. I want to go through this door down here. You let me in. Oh wait, can I just go in? No. Yeah. No, they're drinking it. Okay, here's a teleporter. Okay, what's the conversation here? Between a soldier and somebody we have no idea yet. Okay. Look at that, easy money. We love puzzles. I sought you, you found me. I seek you, you find me. So there's you, me, I, you. Okay. So the self. I. Well. I. You. Right? And then that would make this seek. And this one would be fine then. Oh. Confirmation. You. I. Find. Seek. Did I make it miss it? Did I mix it up? Okay. So the hold on. You I sought. Me you found. Okay. Yeah, so instruments plural. Instruments and music. Well, I'm pretty sure these two are right. Unless this is comedy. Music. This one. Okay. And it is comedy. Okay. Look at that, perfect. Music and instrument. I like when I happen to get the music or the words right. Makes me quite happy. The same symbol on each side. This language has a lot of concept words. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I like how they're looking at the piss grate. What's up? Did you drop something in it? It says it down there. Oh, you dropped a ring. I see. I understand. Unfortunately, I won't be able to get it right now because it is after 2 hours my time to go and get ready for my other job. So I believe this is where we'll have to leave off for today. And we'll pick up again tomorrow. I'm off work tomorrow though, so I should be able to do a longer stream and possibly even finish this game tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. But for now, I'm going to sign off. I hope everybody has a good day. Bye.